Hi friends, we are going to be listening to a story today that has to do with horses and cowboys because we're learning about the rodeo this week. And in Clovis, we have a famous Clovis rodeo, but this year it has been canceled due to shelter in place. So we still have to read and learn about horses and cowboys and the wild, wild west. And I have a character today who's visiting, and her name, you're also going to see her in the book. She looks a little different in the book, but her name is Miz Lurleen, and you're going to get to know Miz Lurleen in the story we're going to read, and it is called Bubba the Cowboy Prince. And Bubba the Cowboy Prince is called A Fractured Texas Tale, and it is written by Helen Kettman, and it's illustrated by James Orhola. And Bubba the Cowboy Prince, as I'm reading you this story, I want you to learn, because in stories we can make text to self connections, which is something about the story reminds us about ourselves. We can make text to text connections, meaning this story may remind us about another story we've heard before. Or we can make text to world connections, which means that this story that we're listening to reminds us about something that we've learned about or heard about or listened to at another time. So today I want you to, when you're listening to the story, see if you can make connections to a text to text. Is there something about this story that reminds you about another story you may have heard before? Okay, Bubba the Cowboy Prince. Here are some of the characters in the story, and their names are, I think this one is the Wicked Stepdaddy, this is Bubba, this is Dwayne, and Milton. Now the way the words are written in the story will have Mrs. Youssef have an accent that I normally don't have, but that's part of the fun of reading this book because the words make me speak a little differently than I normally would. Okay, and I think I might need my glasses for this one because the words are a little bit small, and the glasses will help me to read it. Once a strapping young feller named Bubba lived on a ranch with his wicked stepdaddy and his hateful and lazy stepbrothers, Dwayne and Milton. Bubba's stepdaddy spoiled Dwayne and Milton to no end, but Bubba worked from sunup to sundown, doing the chores of 3 ranch hands. Bubba never complained, though. He loved ranching. You can see him on a ranch on a horse. And the wicked stepdaddy and his sons are just watching him work. Dwayne and Milton spent their days sitting on horseback, bossing Bubba around. Get them doggies along there, Bubba, ordered Dwayne. Yeah, and watch for them cow patties, added Milton. You know how Daddy hates for you to track up the house. Now, Miz Lurleen, who lived down the road a piece, was the purtiest and richest gal in the county. She owned the biggest spread west of the Brazos, and she loved ranching too. But it was lonesome work, and after a while, she decided it was time for some companionship. That means she needs to find a friend. I aim to find myself a feller, she said, one who loves ranching as much as I do, and it wouldn't hurt if he was cute as a cow's ear too. Miz Lurleen decided to throw a ball. She sent invitations to all the ranchers in Texas. Are you making any text-to-text connections yet? Soon, the day of the ball arrived. Milton and Dwayne spent all their day gussied up in front of their finest duds. Bubba ran about himself ragged, waiting on him. Bubba, shouted Dwayne, fetch my bolo tie. Bubba, shouted Milton, get my boots polished. Bubba, shouted his wicked stepdaddy, brush them horses and wash that wagon. You see how hard he's working? He's not getting ready to go to the ball, but he's getting everybody else ready to go to the ball. By the time Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy were ready to go, Bubba was exhausted. Still, as they climbed into the wagon, Bubba asked, "Can't you wait for me to get ready? I want to dance with Miz Lurleen too." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy hooted and hollered. "Why, you're sorrier than a steer in a stockyard," said Dwayne. "Can you imagine Miz Lurleen dancing with the likes of you?" said Milton. "Miz Lurleen wouldn't even wipe the dirt off of her shirt of yours, and you smell more like the cattle than the cattle do." You see them laughing at Bubba, and here's poor Bubba's just so tired from working. I wouldn't say that they're very kind to him. Bubba took a look at himself. It was true. He didn't have a decent shirt to wear. His boots were downright disgraceful, and he did smell a bit rough. Milton and Dwayne were right. Miz Lurleen wouldn't dance with the likes of him. Bubba hung his head. He felt lower than a rattlesnake in a gully. Milton and Dwayne and their wicked daddy went off to the ball. Bubba mounted his horse and headed for the pasture to check on the herd. The sky was getting darker than a black bull at midnight. It looked like a Texas thunderstorm was brewing. I see something in the clouds. Can you see something in the clouds? Bubba had just arrived at the cow pasture when a bolt of lightning struck, knocking him off his horse. Bubba was stunned for a moment, but when he picked himself up, he heard a voice. "Go to the ball, Bubba," said the voice. Bubba looked around. No one was there, just him and the cows. And look at that big bolt of lightning that struck the ground. Something magical was happening. Now Bubba figured he'd bonk the bejeebers out of his bean because the voice was coming from a cow. She chewed her cud for a moment, then she said, "I'm your fairy god cow, and I can help you go to the ball." Bubba sat up, rubbing his head. I'd like to go, Miss God Cow, but shoot, I don't have a thing to wear." The fairy god cow swished her tail, and Bubba's raggedy clothes changed into the handsomest cowboy duds he'd ever laid eyes on. His jeans were crisp, his boots were shiny, his shirt was dazzling, and his Stetson was whiter than a new salt lick. Why, I look downright purty," said Bubba. And he does. Do you see how handsome he looks in his shiny new clothes? The fairy god cow swished her tail again, and a nearby steer turned into the most beautiful white stallion Bubba had ever seen. "Now you go on to the ball, Bubba, and have a good time dancing with Miz Lurleen. But you best be home by midnight, 'cause that's when the magic runs out." "Yahoo!" shouted Bubba as he jumped on the white horse and galloped off to the ball. Look how happy he looks. He sure looks differently than when his wicked stepdaddy was laughing at him. I wonder what's going to happen when he gets to the ball. Are you making any connections? What does this story remind you of any other story you know? I bet you it does. When Bubba arrived, the hoedown was in full swing, but every time Miz Lurleen finished a dance, she yawned. "Oh, there goes another $10 Stetson on a 5-cent head," she complained. "Where are all the real cowboys?" By the time it was Bubba's turn to dance with Miz Lurleen, it was almost midnight. Soon as she saw Bubba, Miz Lurleen's eyes lit up. "Why, you're as cute as a cow's ear," she said. Bubba blushed and then took Miz Lurleen in his arms and started dancing. Dwayne and Milton turned purple with jealousy. "Who is that dude?" said Dwayne. "I don't recollect seeing him here before, but he looks a mite familiar," said Milton. "Do something there, wicked stepdaddy. That cowboy is winning Miz Lurleen's heart." As it turned out, Milton and Dwayne didn't have to do a thing because Bubba and Miz Lurleen were in the middle of a do-si-doing when the clock struck midnight. Suddenly, Bubba's fine duds turned into the dirty rags he usually wore around the ranch. Oh, he looked sorry, and he smelled worse. "What's that awful smell?" asked Milton. "Why, it's Bubba," shouted Dwayne. Bubba turned 14 shades of red, apologized to Miz Lurleen, and ran out of the room. "Wait!" she yelled, chasing after him. But Bubba didn't wait. He jumped on his cow and lumbered off into the night. In the ruckus, he lost one of his dirty cowboy boots. Miz Lurleen clasped it in her arms. "This is the boot of a real cowboy and the man I want to marry, and I aim to find him." Miz Lurleen went back inside, and though she asked everybody at the ball, nobody knew who the mysterious cowboy was. Nobody except Dwayne and Milton and their wicked stepdaddy. That is, but they weren't talking. The next day, Miz Lurleen went from ranch to ranch looking for the cowboy who owned the boot. When she came to Dwayne and Milton's ranch, both brothers tried the boot on, but it didn't fit. Miz Lurleen had just climbed up on her horse to leave when Bubba rode up. He was dirty and sweaty and smelly from working with the cows, and he was the only one wearing one boot. Miz Lurleen jumped off her horse and ran over to Bubba. "Try this on," she cried. Bubba took off his dirty old boot and pulled it on. "Much obliged, ma'am," he said, blushing. "It fit perfectly." "You're my prince and cowboy boot," shouted Miz Lurleen. "I'd recognize that smell anywhere. Marry me, cowboy, and help me work my ranch." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked stepdaddy threw chicken fits. But Bubba smiled, and as he and Miz Lurleen just rode off into the sunset, they lived happily ever after, roping and cowpoking and getting them doggies along. That had a very nice ending. I hope you friends like that story and you have made your text-to-text connection. What does this story remind you of? Keep thinking. It's a story that begins with the sound of s. Okay. And again, wait for your next rodeo story or something about horses and cowboys. So, friends, see you again next time. Goodbye.